The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects.
Vrindarika Mataji, are you maybe on mute?
Oh, sorry, I was on mute. 15.10. Utkramantam stitam vapi bhunjanam vagunanvitam vimudhananupashyanti pashyanti jnana shakshusha.
The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all these.
15.11. Yatanto yoginaschainam pashyanti atmani avashtitam yatantopi akratatmano nainam pashyanti ashetasaha.
The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try so.
15.12. Yadadityagatam tejo jagad bhasayate khilam yakchandramasi yakchagnau tattejo vidimamakam.
The splendor of the sun, which dissipates the darkness of this whole world, come from me. And the splendor of the moon and the splendor of the fire are also from me.
15.13. Gamavishya cha bhutani dharayami aham ojasa pushnami cha saddhi sarva shoma bhutva rasatmakaha.
I enter into each planet, and by my energy, they stay in orbit. I become the moon, and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables.
15.14. Aham ashvanaro bhutva praninam dehamashritah pranapana samayukta pachamiyanam chaturvidham.
I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the 4 kinds of foodstuff.
15.15. Sarvasya chaham ridishani vishto mata smritirgyanamapohanam cha vedaischa sarverahameva vedyo vedanta kridveda videva chaham.
I'm seated in everyone's heart, and from me come remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas.
15.16. Dvau imam purushau loke sharashakshara eva cha shara sarvani bhutani hutasto shara uchyate.
There are 2 classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is called infallible.
15.17. Uttama purushastvanya paramatmeti udarata yo lokatrayam avishya vivarti avyaya ishvaraha.
Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them.
15.18 Yasmatsharam atitoham aksharadapi chodamaha atosmi loke vedecha pratita purushottamaha.
Because I'm transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I'm the greatest, I'm celebrated both in the worlds and in the Vedas as that Supreme Person.
15.19 Yo mamevam asamudho janati purushottamam sa sarva vidbhajati mam sarva bhavena bharata.
Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, without doubting, is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata.
1520 Iti guyatamam shastram idam uktam maya nagha etad buddhva buddhimanshat krita krityascha bharata.
This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed now by me. Whoever understands this will become wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. Hare Krishna, thank you.
Hare Krishna, thank you so much, both of you. Vrindarika Mataji, very nice recitation, nice pronunciations. Now we can understand how. Now we know why Sridham is such a good reciter. Gets from his mother. Thank you.
I learned from him, Prabhu. Thank you.
And Shobhana Mataji, thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji, thank you.
Okay, so we'll now go straight to the. Okay, let me just see, there's a couple of messages on chat to see if there's anything important. Right, that's fine. Okay, so we will continue with chapter 11. We'll do the summary first, as usual. So 11:1 to 8, these 8 verses, Arjun makes a request to Krishna to show him his universal form, and Krishna then describes it before actually showing it to him. Then when he shows it to him, Dhritarashtra actually is describing to, Sanjay is describing the scene to Dhritarashtra. So we have this big 9 to 31, these verses where Sanjay is speaking. And then from 32 to 34, this mini section, Krishna is explaining that he is time himself, and is requesting Arjun to become, or asking Arjun to become his instrument. 35 to 46, Arjun is offering amazing prayers to Krishna. And this last section, where Krishna's two-armed form is shown only to pure devotees. This is what this last section is about. So we'll go to today's verse. And we start with Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Bhagavad Gita chapter 11, text 51. Arjuna Uvacha Drishtvedam Manusam Rupam Tava Saumyam Janardana Idanim Asmi Samvrita Sacheta Prakritim Gataha. When Arjun thus saw Krishna in his original form, he said, O Janardana, seeing this human-like form, so very beautiful, I am now composed in mind and am restored to my original nature. So, Saumyam. So here, this word Saumyam, yesterday also, the verse that Madhukumari did, there was a term there. It was something like, Saumya Vapu. There it was said as a beautiful form. Here, Saumyam, just very beautiful. So this word is used again in this verse. And Arjuna is addressing Krishna as Janardana. Because Janardana has got different meanings. One of the meanings is one who bestows boons on his devotees. So Arjuna is so happy that Krishna has now bestowed the boon of showing him his original form. Because as we know, a couple of verses ago, Arjuna was actually feeling very disturbed looking at the universal form. So he's calling him Janardana. Thank you for giving me the boon to show me your beautiful form. We'll go to the purport. And I don't have, okay, so I've got Varsha Mataji here. Maybe Varsha Mataji, you can read this.
I shall try, Prabhuji. Not very good. Here the words Mamusam Rupam clearly indicates the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be originally two-handed. Those who deride Krishna as if he were an ordinary person are shown here to be ignorant of his divine nature. If Krishna is like an ordinary human being, then how it is possible for him to show the universal form and again to show the four-handed Narayana form? So it is very clearly stated in Bhagavad Gita that one who thinks that Krishna is an ordinary person and who misguided the reader by claiming that it is the impersonal Brahman within Krishna speaking in doing the greatest injustice. Krishna has actually shown his universal form and his four-handed Vishnu form. So how can he be an ordinary human being? A pure devotee is not confused by misguided commentaries on Bhagavad Gita because he knows what is what. The original words of Bhagavad Gita are as clear as sun. They do not require lamplight from foolish commenters. Sorry, but if I've made mistakes.
Very nice. Srila Prabhupada ki jai.
Jai.
Yanati mirandasya Dhyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhakti Charu Swami Niti Namine Namo Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimati Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namine Namaste Saraswate Deve Gauravani Pacharine Nirvishesha Sunyavadi Pashyatya Desha Tarine Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Shri Prabhupada Ki Jai. So as usual, we'll just go through the main points of this purport. Prabhupada is saying here the words Manu, Sham, Rupam clearly indicate the Supreme Personality of Godhead to be originally two-handed. So as we can see from the preceding verses, Arjun actually asked him to show him his forearm form. From the universal form, Krishna showed him the forearm form and then to the two-arm form. So that sequence shows us that the original final form is the two-arm form. This is what Prabhupada is pointing out here. And the verses in the Brahma Samhita that explain this very nicely about Krishna's forms. This particular verse we sing every morning. So we will all, I'm sure we know this verse. Venum kvanantam, o venum kvanantam arvinda dadalaya taksham, bharavatam samasitam buddha sundarangam, kandarpa koti kamaniya vishesha shobha, govinda adipurusham tamaham bhajami. Lord Brahma is describing Krishna's form here. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is adept in playing his flute, with blooming eyes like lotus petals, with head decked with peacock's feather, with a figure of beauty tinged with the hue of blue clouds, and his unique loveliness charming millions of cupids. Such a wonderful description of the Lord here. And see, playing his flute. So this is the original primeval Lord, Brahma is saying, because we never see the forearm form of the Lord playing flute. So here he's specifically mentioning that he's playing his flute, peacock feather. Of course, the forearm form also has a peacock feather, but specifically playing the flute is important. So we can see from here that his original form is two-armed. And then the very next verse, 531. Alola Chandraka Lasat Vanamalya Manamalya Vamsi Ratnangadam Pranaya Keli Kala Vilasam Shyamam Tribanga Lalitam Niyata Prakasham Govindam Adipurusham Tamaham Bhajami. Tribanga Lalitam, his form, Krishna is like, the body is like broken in three parts, like almost twisted in three parts. That's how he normally stands so beautifully. Translation of this purport, of this verse from Brahma. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, round whose neck is swinging a garland of flowers, beautified with a moon locket, whose two hands, see, two hands are mentioned here, whose two hands are adorned with the flute and jeweled ornaments, who always revels in pastimes of love, whose graceful threefold bending form of Shyamasundara is eternally manifest. So there's a couple of verses evidencing that, yes, Krishna's form is originally two-armed form. This is like an eternal debate, as we all know. Does Krishna come from Vishnu, or does Vishnu come from Krishna? And whenever this comes up, I always say that, look, actually it's like splitting hairs. There really is no difference. Actually doesn't matter who comes from who, because they are both equally powerful. But then, just as they say, just as you take one candle and then light 100 candles with that candle, the light emitted and the heat emitted by all the candles will be equal to the first candle, but there is still the original candle. So this way, yes, these verses show that the original form of the Lord is two arms. But still, I always discourage people from debating this because it's really not necessary. They're both, we worship them both equally. Then Prabhupada says, those who deride Krishna as if he were an ordinary person are shown here to be ignorant of his divine nature. So there's a beautiful verse in chapter 9. Anybody know which verse this is talking about this? People who deride Krishna in his...
Avajananti mam muda. Is that the one?
Yeah, that's the one. That's the one. Is that Krishna? Sorry, it's Krishnavani Mataji, yes?
No, I'm Rupa.
Oh, Rupa, sorry, your name didn't come up. So yeah, Rupa Mataji, yeah, thank you so much. So 9:11. Avajananti mamuda manushim tanum ashritam param bhavam ajananto mama bhuta maheshwaram. Avajananti. So they don't know. Muda. They don't know me. Muda. In the translation, they are as foolish, is it? Fools, yeah. Fools deride me. So fools deride me when I descend in a human form. They do not know my transcendental nature as a supreme Lord of all that be. So only people rather, who can think of Krishna to be ordinary are people who don't know, who never touched Krishna's books, who have not come in touch with Bhagavad Gita, or even if they have opened it, they have listened to the wrong translations from people who are not qualified. So people like that are called mudas, fools, because they take Krishna as an ordinary person. There's so many places in the Bhagavad Gita where Krishna is confirming that he is the original Supreme Lord. And yet people say that, yes, he was there, he was maybe some very powerful living entity, but that's about it. Or they say, yes, he was, maybe he came from the spiritual sky, but when he came to the material world, he took on a human form and he took on the qualities like all of us. So they also say that Krishna, just like we are covered by the three modes of nature and deluded by Maya, they feel that Krishna also is the same position, although slightly more powerful than us. So this is a big misconception of people who do not know about Krishna. By reading books like Bhagavad Gita, we get this wonderful knowledge. So there's some purport here. This is part of the purport of that particular verse. It's a very long purport, but I've just selected a particular section. So perhaps here I've got Jyoti Mataji, if you can, Jyoti Thakrar, if you can perhaps read that.
Yes, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Where am I starting from? Sorry. Despite.
Yes.
Okay. Despite the transcendental qualities of Lord Krishna's body, its full bliss and knowledge, there are many so-called scholars and commentators of Bhagavad Gita who deride Krishna as an ordinary man. The scholar may be born an extraordinary man due to his previous good work. But this conception of Sri Krishna is due to a poor fund of knowledge. Therefore, he is called Muda. For only foolish persons consider Krishna to be an ordinary human being. The foolish consider Krishna an ordinary human being because they do not know the confidential activities of the Supreme Lord and his different energies. They do not know that Krishna's body is a symbol of complete knowledge and bliss, that he is the appropriator of everything that be, and that he can award liberation to anyone, because they do not know that Krishna has so many transcendental qualifications, they deride him.
Thank you, Jyoti Mataji. Thank you. Very nice recited. So you can see here, Prabhupada is confirming exactly that somebody may be very scholarly because of his previous good work, which means that we get our intelligence also because of our previous sukriti, maybe in our previous life or even this life. But this is how we get our intelligence, and maybe we become very scholarly. But that does not qualify us to understand Krishna. To understand Krishna, we need to read about Krishna, we need to hear about Krishna, we need to associate with Krishna's devotees. Otherwise, there is no chance. How will you ever understand Krishna? And without these kind of things, without actually being in a devotional mood, if you read the Bhagavad Gita on your own, you will be misled, especially if you're reading a translation which is from an unauthorized source. Certainly you will never realize that Krishna is Supreme Lord. You will come with this kind of concept of Krishna. And that is so sad, because that particular person is missing the point, and he's wasting his life, unfortunately. Prabhupada continues, one who misguides the reader by claiming that it is the impersonal Brahman within Krishna speaking, he is doing the greatest injustice. So there are a lot of people, the impersonalists, they believe that the Brahma Jyoti is the all in all, and everything comes from the Brahma Jyoti. So Krishna also is a product of the impersonal Brahman. So Prabhupada is saying here that that is doing the greatest injustice. People then get misdirected, and their focus goes away from service. Because the human form of life, devotional service, is something that we need to cultivate. The Bhagavatam says that, Bhagavad Gita says that. But if we move away from the personal form of the Lord, and we think that Krishna is just some kind of a jyoti, some energy, then the concept of service doesn't come. Because service means that there's got to be a master, a Lord, and there's got to be a servitor, and there's service there. Without that, how can it be? You cannot serve some light or some energy. So people who, again, they're misled like this, they don't come to devotional service, and the purpose of human life is lost. So this concept of whether one should be, and devotees, there are a lot of people. I would say the majority of people are in that side. The devotees who worship the personal form are very few. So we are in the minority, really. But when you look at verses, for example, in the 12th chapter, we looked at these verses just a few days ago rather, but they're very pertinent for what we're discussing today. So right at the beginning of the 12th chapter of Bhagavad Gita, which we will be starting soon, Arjuna's asking this wonderful question. Arjuna uvacha, evam satata yukta ye bhaktastvam paryupasate ye chapyaksharam avyaktam tesham ke yoga vita ma. Arjuna is saying, Arjuna inquiring, which are considered to be more perfect, those who always properly engage in your devotional service, or those who worship the impersonal Brahman, the unmanifest? And text 2, Krishna answers. Shri Bhagavan Uvacha, Maya Veshya Mano Ye Mam Nitya Yukta Upasate Shraddhaya Parayopetas Te Me Yukta Tamamata. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, those who fix their minds on my personal form and always engaged in worshipping me with great and transcendental faith are considered by me to be the most perfect. So it is so clear in these two verses that Krishna is saying certainly that the personal form is superior. We accept the Brahma Jyoti. We accept that that is a partial realization of the supreme truth. We don't reject it. We accept the Paramatma being also a partial realization of the supreme truth. But we believe that the Supreme Personality of Godhead, his personal form, is the complete realization. Whereas the impersonalists, they completely ignore the personal form. They just stick to the impersonal Brahma Jyoti, and that is it. For them, that is all that is, and everything else comes from there. So you can see how there's a gulf of difference in terms of the destination of such people. Krishna says, there are a lot of preachers you will come across who will say, it doesn't matter who you worship. In Gujarati, they say, "Tame jene bhajo and bhajo," doesn't matter. In the end, we all end up in the same place. But Bhagavad Gita doesn't agree with that. There's a verse 925. 925. Anybody remind me the first line? In that verse, anyway, Krishna says that those who worship the demigods will take birth amongst the demigods. Those who worship the ancestors will go to them. Those who worship the ghosts and spirits will take birth among such beings. But those who worship me will live with me. So it's like you can't buy a ticket to go to Glasgow and expect to end up in Mumbai. Similarly, the path you take, the worship you do, will decide our destination. Anybody remember that verse? 925, just gone from my mind for a second.
Yanti Deva
Yanti
Vrata.
Deva.
Thank you.
Yanti Deva Vritam.
I just need the first line sometimes. Yanti Deva Vita Devan.
Pitru Yanti
Bhutani Yanti Bhuteja.
Bhutesa.
Yanti Madhyaji Nopimam. So clearly Krishna says these are the different destinations of different worships. Yet people will go, and because they just want popular vote, popular people just come and fill the marquees or fill the pandals when they do programs. They want everybody to feel comfortable. So it doesn't matter who you worship. But that's not true. Bhagavad Gita doesn't agree. This is part of the purport of the 12.2. So let's see who's going here. Santosh Mataji, perhaps you can read this.
I'm here, Prabhuji. Thank you. In answer to Arjuna's question, Krishna clearly says that he who concentrates upon his personal form and who worships him with faith and devotion is to be considered most perfect in yoga. For one in such Krishna consciousness, there are no material activities because everything is done for Krishna. A pure devotee is constantly engaged. Sometimes he chants, sometimes he hears or reads books about Krishna, or sometimes he cooks prasadam, or goes to the marketplace to purchase something for Krishna, or sometimes he washes the temple or the dishes. Whatever he does not let a single moment pass without devoting his activities to Krishna. Such action is in full samadhi.
Thank you,
Prabhuji.
very nicely recited. So you can see samadhi. Samadhi, when we think about the word samadhi, we think of a sadhu sitting in the Himalayas with eyes closed and just sitting in a lotus pose. That is, of course, it is samadhi. But actually, practically speaking, for all devotees, this is samadhi. To be engaged in doing something for Krishna throughout the day. We have to, Hare Krishna, I just mute that. You can, we have to somehow bring Krishna to the center of all our activities. We have to organize our day in such a way that all the time, some way, we are thinking of Krishna. Again, going back to the 9th chapter, 927. Yat karoshi yat dashnashi yat juhoshi dadashi yat tapachashi konti yat tat kurushya madhar arpanam. Krishna says, whatever you do, whatever you eat, whatever you offer to give away, and whatever austerities you do that, O son of Kunti, as an offering to me. So this is like a formula of how we can be Krishna conscious all the time. Not Krishna conscious just in the morning when we are doing our worship or when we are chanting, but Krishna conscious all the time. Whatever we do, keep Krishna in mind. Ishopanishad, again talking about the personal form, the mantra 15 of Ishopanishad says, Hiranmayena patrena satyasya pihitam mukham tattvam pushan apavenu satya dharmaya drishyate. O my Lord, sustainer of all that lives, Your real face is covered by your dazzling effulgence. Kindly remove that covering and exhibit yourself to your pure devotee. So see, Ishopanishad is talking about many people actually, sometimes these people who don't believe in the personal form, they quote Upanishads and say, oh, this is where it says the Brahma Jyoti and everything. But here it clearly says, because if Krishna was not a person, there's no question of there being a face. Here it says Mukham in this verse. Mukham. Mukham means face, clearly. How can anybody misinterpret this? So Krishna his form is personal at the end, for sure. So many different places we can quote. Then continuing with this purport, Prabhupada says a pure devotee is not confused by misguiding commentaries on Bhagavad Gita because he knows what is what. The original verses of the Bhagavad Gita are as clear as the sun, so they do not require a lamplight from foolish commentators. So it's like, like taking a torch and shining it on the sun to make it more brighter. Does it make sense? The verses originally, as Krishna spoke, are as clear as the sun, Krishna Prabhupada is saying. Problem is, as I was saying earlier, the commentators, not qualified, they come from different angles, they have a different agenda, and they translate the verses to suit their own purpose. And this is what makes a mess. Bhagavad Gita as it is. So Bhagavad Gita that we are reading today is called as it is. Prabhupada called it as it is for a reason. When Prabhupada, before he started to translate this, he realized that there were, at that time already, there were more than 200 different translations of Bhagavad Gita done by various people. Obviously, not all of them were not authorized, but quite a few of them were done by scholars who happen to know Sanskrit. So they will pick up the Bhagavad Gita, they know Sanskrit, they know English, so they can sit and translate. But a scholar cannot get the devotion in his heart. And this is why, as it is, Sanskrit is such a complex language that each word can have 7, 8, 9 different meanings, depending on context. So if you don't have a devotional context, you will not be able to understand what Krishna is saying. And this is why people are so badly misled. Many times when we go book distribution, people say, oh yeah, I've read the Bhagavad Gita, I know the Bhagavad Gita, I have the Bhagavad Gita. And then you ask them any question about the Bhagavad Gita, I have no idea, because they have not really heard the proper Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada has called this as it is because he has translated this by taking into account amazing translations by our previous acharyas and giving us the translation of exactly how Krishna spoke and exactly how Arjuna heard. And this is why this Bhagavad Gita is so potent. You imagine at that time, as I said, there was 200 more. At the moment, maybe there's more than 600 translations of Bhagavad Gita. Think about this. All those 600 translations of Bhagavad Gita put together, maybe have made a handful of devotees, maybe. But this one Bhagavad Gita, as it is, Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita, the potency is such amazing potency that throughout the world, this one Bhagavad Gita has converted hundreds of thousands of not just Westerners, but also Indians into practicing Vaishnavas. This is the potency of this book. This is why whenever I'm on the street and I'm trying to teach Bhagavad Gita and somebody says, I've got one, and then they show me some Bhagavad Gita, which is from some other author, I always say, just take this, read this, and then you will see the difference. Just a little history about the Bhagavad Gita. Prabhupada translated the Bhagavad Gita, but he was finding it difficult to get it printed because all the publishers that he went to, they didn't see any commercial value in it. Publishers are interested only to print something that's going to sell in big volumes. So he was not succeeding. Finally, somehow he got in touch through one of his devotees with Macmillan Publishers. And they agreed to publish it. But you can see, they were also not so sure. They said, we'll publish an abridged version. So Prabhupada was not happy, but they said, okay, fine, we'll do this. So they did a 400-page Bhagavad Gita. The manuscript Prabhupada had written was 1,000 pages. but they didn't have the confidence. But then as soon as it was published, because of the devotees preaching and again Prabhupada's potency in the translations, it sold in big volumes. So then in 1972, because the sales were so substantial, Macmillan agreed to publish the complete edition. So the first complete edition was printed in 1972, and of course there have been tons and tons of reprints. Right now, this book is one of the most, I think after the Bible, this is probably the most circulated book in the world today. The structure, as we know, we're studying it. Prabhupada gives the structure. The original verse in Sanskrit, in Devanagari. He then gives the English transliteration. Then he gives the word for word. We actually, in these sessions, we don't do the word for word. But normally when you do a class, we actually go through word to word translation as well. Sanskrit equivalent, and then translations and purports. So there is no other Gita which is so complete. You will have somebody's commentary, you will have somebody's translations, but nothing as comprehensive as what Prabhupada has given in this Bhagavad Gita. And that is why we must take this advantage of this campaign that we have started. What is Live to Give? Live to Give. And really focus and try and give this wonderful gift to everybody that we know. Shashtradan, we actually, tomorrow is the last day of Purushottam. Of course, the campaign continues because normally we have the Christmas marathon, so this will continue until Christmas, until the day of Gita Jayanti, which is on the 25th of December. So we have a chance for the next 3 months to really push and give this amazing Shashtradan to all our friends and family. What I want to do is just end with this. We're talking about Krishna's form. And this particular verse of the 10th canto of Bhagavatam, chapter 21, which is titled Venu Gita, is titled The Song of the Flute, but you translate it as Venu Gita. Venu Gita, rather, not Gita, Venu Gita. And this particular chapter, if you get a chance, you should read it. It contains some of the most striking verses describing the gopis' love for Krishna. So this verse, I think I've also recited here before, but like I said, this is one of my favorite verses. Any opportunity, I always try to recite this verse. Baraha pidam natavadabapu karnayo karnikaram bibratvasa kanakakapisham Vaijayantim chamalam Randran veno adarasudaya Puranana kopa vrinde Vrindaraniyam Swapadaramana Ravisha Gita Kirti Ravisha Gita Kirti. Wearing a peacock feather ornament upon his head, blue karnikar flowers on his ears, a yellow garment as brilliant as gold, and the Vaijayanti Mala, a Vaijayanti garland. Lord Krishna exhibited his transcendental form as the greatest of dancers as he entered the forest of Vrindavan, beautifying it with the marks of his footprints. He filled the holes of his flute with the nectar of his lips, and the cowherd boys sang his glories. So this is a scene of Krishna returning home in the evening after tending the cows. And the gopis are looking at this and they are singing this beautiful verse. So we will stop here. I'll just put this slide up once more about the Live to Give campaign, just to remind everybody. Let's change lives. You can see all the people walking into the Bhagavad Gita and coming out as pure devotees. Let's try and give this chance and opportunity to everybody we know. So I will stop here. Sorry, as usual, I have overrun, but we will open for questions, comments. realizations.
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Hare Krishna, Hemlata Mataji.
I wanted to ask one question. I read somewhere manifested and unmanifested form of worship. And they say if initially everyone should worship manifested form, and eventually when you spiritually grow, you should worship the unmanifested form. But it became clear with this verse that a personal or manifested form is better than worshipping the unmanifested form.
Exactly. So Hemlata Mataji, Hemlata Ben, you have actually brought up the point that the impersonalists make. They say that people who are worshipping the personal form are not so mature yet. After they're mature, they will then come to the impersonal. But how does it make sense? It doesn't make sense.
Yes, what I think in personal form, you can imagine the things. In impersonal form, your chit may wander here and there. Your mind will not be fixed. That's what I'm thinking.
Exactly. So in the next chapter we will be reading, after the 2 verses we have read today in the 12th chapter, Krishna goes on to say exactly that. That yes, that's also a path, but that path is very difficult.
Yes.
As you mentioned, it's very difficult to focus on just nothingness or just light, right? So, but when you have verses like we just recited, when you have such beautiful descriptions of Krishna, you can be absorbed in it with love and feeling. You can't have feeling towards some light.
Very true. Yes.
So,
Thank you. Yeah. Hare
thank you.
Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Anybody else? I'm just going through the messages. So question here, there are lots of comments and appreciations, so thank you so much. Appreciations also for the reciters of the Sanskrit and English translations of the chapter also. So yeah, but there's Dev Kishan Prabhu is saying why, sorry, I jumped. Why is it we worship Vishnu and Krishna the same if Krishna is the personality of Godhead, Supreme? Yeah, thank you, Dev Kishan Prabhu. So yes, our ultimate for Vaishnavas, of course, the ultimate worship is as we are reading these verses, is the two-arm form of the Lord, which is Krishna, the original form. But when if someone has more affinity, somehow he's got more feeling for the four-arm form, we don't worry about it, like we say, because it is like Krishna at home and Krishna in the office. It's the same person. If I'm at home today, I'm Mukunda Haridas. When I go to the office, of course, my name will be my Kami name, but I'm the same person. So they say that the original form of two hands of Krishna is his form at home. Whereas the four-arm form is Krishna himself, but in the office. So when somebody is in the office, he's very formal, right? You can't joke and jump around with him. But when he comes home, that same person who's such a big personality in the office, everybody respects him. He will be on his on his knees and arms, and his children will be jumping on him. So this is the difference, right? And this is why, yes, our ultimate aim is the Lord with two arms. But the point I was making was, let's not argue too much about who is more superior and who is not. Otherwise, it just creates a lot of confusion. In one sense, they're both the same because, like I say, same person, office or home. But we are more attached to the office. But there are other people you'll be surprised, and there's nothing wrong with it. Many people are attracted to the four-arm form, so that's fine. Their destination will be also Vaikuntha, but not Golok Vrindavan. So they'll be also happy there serving the Supreme Lord in Vaikuntha in his four-arm form, and that's fine. They're happy with it. I hope that answers your question, Dev Kishan Prabhu. Anybody else?
I know some.
Okay, what time is it? Yeah, so I can't see the clock here. Yeah, coming up to 1:45. So once again, thank you. So tomorrow is the last day of Purushottam month. Make the most of it. Pray more. Think about those who are suffering and pray for them. And look after yourselves. Look after everybody else. Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank
Hare
you.
Krishna. Thank
Hare
you so
Krishna,
much.
Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Devoji.